Well, hello, everybody. This is Chad and Brandon with Unfinished People.
Holy cow, you went right
We're
into
back.
it.
And we're back. Better to just rip the Band-Aid
like,
off, don't you think? Like, we just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
This is that moment in those movies when you're like, the movie is surely over and they're dead. There's no way. And then all of a sudden, rising from the depths. He's alive!
Ash.
Yeah. So we are.
Should our podcast be called
The Phoenix, rising from the ashes. Yes, we're here. No,
Yeah, let's not do that.
Well, for now, we'll just do a working title of "We're Back." I'm not even sure what episode it is because it's been so long. But a much needed break, probably. I think maybe the Lord kind of just pulled the plug for us, just to help us deal with stuff and life. But what we thought about today was not only to kind of catch you guys up on where we are and what's happening in our lives, but since Brandon and I haven't had other than like short opportunities just to text and say, hey man, praying for you, love you. We haven't had this kind of time. And so we thought we'd just let you guys see how do two guys who are following Jesus, who love Jesus, who doubt their abilities in the kingdom of God and sometimes feel like we don't know what we're doing. How do we encourage each other? How do we connect? How do we jump back in when it's been a long time? And yeah, just if it's instructive, awesome. But sometimes just learning how to be a good friend and doing that well. And so we thought we'd show you. So sound good?
I love the presumption that like
you are a good friend. You are an excellent friend. Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
Let's just like, hey, how are you? Yeah. How's
Hi.
it going? We know little details a bit about what's been happening, but I think probably like how would you like sum up the last months for yourself?
Well, yeah, I was going to say like, just even for context for those who are eavesdropping on this conversation, like the pause was primarily of my doing, or my
Sure.
need. We like at home, like it was like we were going through a journey of walking alongside Carissa and her mom. Her mom just recently went to go be with Jesus on her brave battle of Alzheimer's. And so we went to this place where we knew we wanted her to live her final days with us. And it was always this matter of like when and how, and my fear and apprehensions and all the kind of things. And it's just so all lined up that she moved in before Palm Sunday. And so it was like all fresh. And we were launching a public capital campaign at our church. So we had Palm Sunday, Easter, capital campaign, hospice care for Chris's mom, moving in, trying to love Carissa, love her mom, and also intentionally disciple our kids in this scenario. Like, it was a season, Chad, where I just felt so thin. And what I felt every single day was I can't bring my best to anything. Like there was like, no matter what it was, no matter what context, like I can't bring my best to the church. I can't bring my best to the staff. I'm not the best dad right now. I'm not the best husband right now. It's just like, cause I can't give the time. It was just like for again, like those who don't know, like living in Austin, 30 minutes drive is like normal, right? So like I'll drive into the office 30 minutes and I'll have to drive back home another 30 minutes. And then because Krista was caretaking, I would then have to take the kids to their events or find,
somebody to help,
a driver, a designated driver to do that. So it was just like, you're just constantly, and so it was just this moment where it's like, I had to choose what to say no to. And I think, man, like, if anything, that is a hard thing to do as a pastor. Like, what do you say no to? And I remember my first go at being a senior pastor, listening to some folks who were on the backside of being a senior pastor and going, I wish I would have said no more, or I wish my family would have had the better parts of me than the leftovers. So it was like, oh gosh, how do I say no to things? And without feeling
Yeah.
like a failure, because that's kind of like really how I felt in a lot of ways with the campaign. Was like, I can't bring my best. I can't lead the staff
Mhm.
well. I am not able to be in all of the planning meetings, and even every sermon and thing was just like, I felt like I was coming
Yeah.
in limping on oxygen tank. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
and the Lord was good, but a lot of lessons learned in that. So that's a little
Yeah.
bit of context
Well,
as
you
to
brought a
why
question.
I had
Something you
to
said just
jump
made
out.
me, which is something we both have to deal with. Like, where does that line for you of I'm a pastor and that's what I do at work. When you come home, are you able to delineate and turn it off and be just husband and dad? Is there ever a break, or is that line pretty gray and wide?
Man, I don't know.
What
I
would
want to be
Carissa
like,
say?
I am like the master of my
No.
calendar. And so, yes, it is.
Mm,
No, it's not. However, I would say the Lord was extremely gracious and merciful that none of it really
mm,
seeped out during this season. Like, I was able to be as present and as compassionate and as loving and as serving as I could. It, I, I could always be better, right? But I felt like the Lord
yeah.
was very gracious in that, of just like keeping us afloat. And I'm like, honestly, it was, looking back, it was such a
Mm,
privilege to love my wife that way, and to love Peggy that way, and even to walk
yeah.
alongside with the kids in that season. We wouldn't take it back for the world. We wouldn't do it over. Um, but it's hard because
Yeah.
it's always there. Like, once you finally lay down and you're going to bed and everybody's sleeping, it's like clunk, then it
Yeah.
clicks on. And then what I feel in that moment is, oh crap, I know I got to get to that. Oh, I know I got to do this. I can't get to that. I can't do this.
What did
It's
your
just like,
conversations with the Lord
it's all right.
because that was my next question. Like, at those, that's where a lot of, like, if I had to say, like, here's the real, like, you hope it's the real you all the time, but if there's ever like a true version of myself that is the most real, it is late at night as I'm trying to go to sleep, laying there, and you're considering everything that's happened that day. And here's my conversation with Jesus. Like, for you in this season, with what you guys were doing, all the driving, um, trying to process that you had somebody living their final days in your house, but not at this place of, yeah, she just was, fully aware and happy and excited about seeing Jesus. Like, it was really hard. And so, what was that? What did that look like
Hmm.
for you? What does that Brandon look like in those moments? Like, what is your conversation with Jesus like? What are some of the things? Because obviously you're going to the stuff you have to do, but what does your heart look like in that moment?
Yeah. I, what is it, Ecclesiastes, where Solomon says, "You're a God in heaven
Here I
and
on
on,
earth.
on earth, so
Yeah.
let my words be few." Yeah, I felt like my words got fewer, but more
Mm-hmm.
more precise. Like, God, I need grace. It's just like, I just get to I was just like at that spot. I'm like, I don't know what else to say, Lord. I just need
Yeah.
you to do it. Like, I will, like, I'm not like trying to cop out, because usually I'm one to ramble. Like, when Jesus says, like, don't think that God hears you by your many words and prayer, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's me, and so I feel like in this season my words were just
Yeah.
less. It was way more succinct. I think they were way more heartfelt, like simple
Mm-hmm.
thanks, like, God, I need your spirit to do this. This is your church. I'll be present. I'm learning to trust you with other people stepping in.
Mm.
And so, like, it sounds so lame to say that, but like, that's the answer. It was just like,
Yeah.
thank you for
We made it.
today. Do it
Yeah.
again tomorrow. Like, kind of stuff. Um, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the best I could say in that.
Yeah. I think I like,
Yeah. I want to sound more like eloquent on that, but it was like,
no,
no, it
I
wasn't.
track completely from my own heart with the longer I follow Jesus, the more things he allows us to go through, um, the less, I don't know, the less confident I am in my certainty, like from a heady kind of academic standpoint. I mean, I know the stuff, you know what I'm saying? But the more I fall back
Mm-hmm.
on just what you were saying, like those really sweet kind of, I don't know, just simple childlike moments of, well, you're all I got. Like, not like, well, Lord, let's process through
Yeah.
and think through what's happening here theologically in this very difficult time. It's just, well,
Right.
you're all I got. I don't know what else to do, but just to call out to you
Yeah.
and trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I think the greatest like joy was watching how tender the Lord was to my
Mm,
wife through this whole process. Like I mean, I had fears and apprehensions going into it, like so many unknowns. Like how are the kids going to handle this? What's this going to mean for us as a family? And blah blah blah. You could just exponentially
mm-hmm.
explode that thinking, but it was just like the Lord was ahead of us, like the whole time. To how do we handle her staying up all night long, and we couldn't find any caretakers to do overnights. To the next thing you know, we have someone overnight every single night, and it was like the
Mm-hmm.
perfect people. And then gospel opportunities with the caretakers and weird coincidental things that the Lord was syncing up with, even Chris's deceased sister and Peggy and the caretaker, just like all crazy stuff. Like just so sweet how God was tender and shepherding her heart. Because that's where I would get to sometimes in my prayers. It's like, Lord, I don't know how to
Mm,
best love her in this. And I felt like just serve her as best you can, and I will take
yeah.
care of the heart. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
Lord,
What would you
it's so
tell,
sweet.
because that was not in a like heady evangelical kind of like, let's sum this all up, but like as you're thinking about like, Lord, what have you been doing in me? Would you say you've been doing different things in your own heart to how to process life and how to be, I don't know, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you feel like you've grown in this time, or do you feel like you've just made it through? Like, what's okay?
Yes, I want to say I've grown. I'm still in process of it because I think the biggest thing it was how
Hmm.
beautiful weakness is. Like, my tendency as a leader is to want to bring my A game and win and grow. And then when I feel like, okay, it's so embarrassing. I shared this with my elders, and when it came out of my mouth, I was so ashamed. But I was like, I want you guys to
Mm-hmm.
know how I'm feeling right now. And I was just like, I feel like if this campaign fails, it's an indictment on me, is what I
Sure.
like. I was feeling. Right. And you're like, well, no, like, why would I put all of
Right.
that on me? And so, like, I think the Lord was helping me see that I carry still in a very real way the success and failure of the church as if I'm the one that's like
Mm-hmm.
responsible for that. Like, yes, there is responsibility of my role, but I felt like if I suck or if I'm not able to give my best, it won't happen. And then it's my
Yeah.
fault. And it's just like, no. So the Lord helped me see, because like, honestly, I think the campaign was the most unprofessionally beautifully done
Mm.
campaign ever. Like we didn't have a consultant. We didn't like snazzy it up with all sorts of like, PR marketing stuff. It was just like,
Yeah.
here it is. We don't really know. We even called it
Yeah.
perhaps. It was like,
Mm.
perhaps the Lord will. We just know he says step forward. So it was just like this beautiful
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so I got to watch our elders lead pastorally in ways I haven't seen them lead pastorally in a long time. I got to see certain staff step up and embrace. I got to see the church rise up and to really embrace roles of volunteerism on the church side. So that was really cool. But even as a dad, like just and as a husband within the family, it's just going like showing compassion and care for your loved ones is a significant aspect of discipleship that I don't think I ever really embraced or understood. To walk that through with a high schooler, middle schooler, and elementary age, as each kid was processing life and death and where is God in the midst of it, just I don't have to have all the answers.
I think it's really sweet just to, it is, we've talked about this a bunch, over the course of the podcast of the idea of what we should be doing, this projected strength and the ability to control things and do things with I don't know, this vision of leader. I'm a leader. And
Yep.
it's awesome just to see God kind of just throws us into the deep end a little bit, where we really are scrambling to grab on to him and to this um just his strength in these moments. Even from afar, like I could tell as we texted and different things, I could see and just sense and prayed this way too, that God would just keep giving you strength. It was clear that he was doing that. um how about your
Yeah.
without, like, because I think we're both pretty good about like keeping things close to the vest as it deals with other people in our lives, but making, we share our own stuff. But as you watched just generally your family kind of walk through this time, how was the Lord present for your family? You mentioned a little bit with Carissa, but even with your kiddos, like what was that like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I were both talking about how incredibly proud and in
Mm,
awe we are
mm,
of Cora and how she went through the process. She was there every second she could to be with Grammy. But what was beautiful was she was ministering
mm,
to Carissa so well with like scriptures and prayers and just like subtle little things to realign Chris's heart. And we were
mm,
just like, wow, it was almost like this. We didn't know that, maybe Cora was that much in the word on her own. It's like there was just little moments where it started to bear fruit. And we were
mhm,
like, okay, that's really cool watching her move into adulthood. But even for her, just to process the struggle of the best thing is for Grammy
mhm,
to be with the Lord because her body and mind are completely broken, but yet Cora was even able to recognize I'm wrestling with some. I want her to stay because that would
yeah,
make me feel better. It's like just that tension. I mean, there was this weird ebb and flow because when Grammy first moved in, the first 3 weeks was like this
mm,
crazy rally where it almost looked like she was on this healing journey, and so that was a little deceptive. And so it was like, even Cora was like, well, look at her. She's doing this and it's great. And you're just like, there's
yeah,
still one trajectory here. Um, the other two kids was this,
mm,
the journey was different. Every kid was different. Like, love my boy, still trying to
mhm,
navigate his heart. I think that's just a middle school boy who is still trying to learn his own feelings and thoughts and emotions. Um, and so he's a tender-headed kid, so I still think he's in process, you know, very similar to me in that regard. And Addie, man, she I think the thing that blessed me the most was like she would
okay,
draw pictures. It was the best way for her to communicate it. And it was always like Jesus and Grammy and the family, type of stuff. But I think the part that moved me the most was the day after Grammy died, when the room was empty. I remember getting up early in the morning and, because early, like Addie's kind of like this, hey, Addie, how are you
mhm,
doing? I'm okay, but you can tell. So I caught her early in the morning just sitting on the floor in Grammy's room by herself at like
hmm,
6 something in the morning, just having a time. You're just like,
mhm. What's
okay.
going on in
It
that
was
little
just
mind? Yeah.
sweet to see that. I think, yeah, like they all of them are like surprised me. I honestly thought it would be like, oh, this is going to mark them forever. They're going to be devastated and wounded,
Yeah.
like, but the Lord was just, I think they walk out with wisdom, understanding death
Mm,
and life and the living hope we have in Jesus, because we were able to talk a lot about that with them in the process. But
yeah.
it was
Yeah,
sweet.
I've loved
Hard,
seeing
but sweet.
as my kids have gotten older, and there's that place of parenting where you see them becoming who God has called them to be, and then you see these gifts and strengths in them that are not like
Yeah.
you, or your wife, like, or Carissa, and same thing with me and Lise, and you're like, who is this person? This is an amazing thing. Where did this come from? Like, this is not even, we
Yeah.
didn't teach this. And when it becomes a thing
Mm-hmm.
that becomes like like you said, a healing in a balm, or like a gift in a moment, and there's this kind of awe and wonder of God's, just the way he uses every person. Yesterday I was in that passage in Matthew 11 when Jesus says, to what can I compare this generation? And so I just paused for a moment to talk about the generations, and did the standard, the
Mm-hmm.
silent generation, the boomers, Gen X, kind of went through the room. And I did this kind of research angle of how do each of the generations handle authenticity and brokenness. And so, case in point, your kids right here with dealing with Grammy and you guys, and then thinking about our
Mm-hmm.
parents and then their parents and how they would handle these moments. And what was really cool was the giftings that each generation had, but also how there's this trajectory to the current generation that is one of more open, more transparent, more willing to admit flaws and talk about it and go there. And I was just like, wow. And I said that, like, this is pretty astounding to me. Like, I look at my kids and they do a better
Mm-hmm.
job than I did of being open and honest and
Oh yeah.
transparent. And I think this is a gift. This is a gift for the church. It's a gift for the world, but even especially like as we see it on a personal level when our kids just bless us, and ours have done the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
we're having them all, Abby's home from college freshman year, Caleb's about to be home, and Maya's working, but sometimes we get them all here at once, and it's like Lisa and I are like kids. We're giddy. They're all gonna be here. It's so fun.
Mm,
And just their personalities and the different strengths they have, and the moments when you're like, wow, Lord, this young woman,
mm,
this young man is quite a person. Like, they are, like, I'm so
yeah.
challenged by their personality and the way they're doing life. And yeah, so it that is a really sweet thing. And especially um considering that it is suffering and the difficult things of our present life that many times cause people to say no to a belief in God, or
Yeah.
that is their number one reason for rejecting him. And so to have our youngins come in and say, hey, the Lord is
Yeah.
the Lord is good in this moment and he's okay. And like, we all find ourselves going, you sure you don't want to be a little more mad about that? Like I have been. Like, or our other generations, like, where we've just been really angry about it. And that, like, yeah, just to hear how your kids
Yeah.
responded, it's very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I was so challenged even by Carissa in her depths of
Mm,
compassion, like just see like even early on, just my wrestling match with the thought of Grammy
mm,
moving in, and like I totally agree with it, but it's just sad. It's sad that that's not, well, looking back, I get it. And I also don't like, it's sad to just be like at some level, like that is no
yeah.
longer part of our culture. That end of life part is more like we
Hmm.
ship them off and let them go. And there's like no real, like, there's just kind of doctoral care, but it's more of
Mm,
like just a holding cell, and just no sense of peace and loving and honor and dignity in the final phase. And I'm so grateful for the
mm,
fortitude in Chris's heart and the conviction to do that, to shepherd all of us well, to show us
yeah.
compassion and mercy and love. Like it really, that taught me something about the tender heart of God that I
Yeah.
struggle with, and so like so incredibly
Mm,
in awe of my wife,
absolutely.
but the church was beautiful. The church was so supportive in this time. They took care of Carissa so well. But how about you, man?
Well, yeah, I've resonated with a lot of what you said, and I said it earlier. And I think this, if there's a theme to this year, it is less as far as religious activity, or even less words, like you mentioned the verse in my conversations, but more refined, more just sweet, concentrated. Like if there's a if there's a concentrated
Mm.
kind of form of prayer that is allows you to kind of just be in this like, okay. And I even found myself in certain prayers to kind of use that same question I asked you of what's that version of me at night, after everything's over, after whatever's happened during the day. And I don't know if you have this where you like, so there are things I like to do at home, whether it's writing, we do this, obviously, you and I, like we do this little thing on the side, which is super fun and encouraging, and, painting, different things like that. But many times I find myself at 11 o'clock at night having not ever gotten up from the couch to do any of those things. And I'm like, oh man,
Mhm.
well, there's always tomorrow. So you kind of go through that, you go through that thing of like, and then you look over to the side table and it's like, how many dishes do I have there from the extra things that I ate tonight that maybe I should like? It's just that like you're working through. And so then you finally lay down. And sometimes I go through and like, I don't even say, um, all the things that I'm thinking about because it's more like, well, you already know what I'm thinking about. Like here, it's all the same things. Like I wish I would do better at this. I wish I could
Mm.
this and this. I want to be closer to you. I want to know your voice. I want to walk like you're right next to me. I know you are. Are you? Like just this. It's a
Mm.
it's good though. It's really good. I don't feel like I've gone backwards at all. I almost like imagine if like it's like, oh, I think this is the path of Christianity. And so imagine, like, just for lack of a better illustration, Pilgrim's Progress and the road, like the kind of this, he's going on this road, stopping at all these
Yeah.
points. And I almost feel like the Lord was like, okay, let's not think about this in a linear way anymore. And just in the spot where I was, just like let the floor drop out, um, and just pause. Like we're going to go deep rather than forward. I'd rather have you
Mm.
understand more about my love, understand more about what it means to trust me through difficult things, and we've had some stuff, and keep some of those things just to us for now as far as the family
Yeah.
details, but things where I've sat with him and I've asked those same questions like, Lord, what is this? What are you doing?
Mm.
How is this your plan? Like this is, there's a moment in you ever seen The Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel? There's that guy on the beach
Mhm.
that wants to
Mhm.
fight him. Really awesome character.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden he's a friend and he finds out there's the treasure. And he's like, how about we just go in there, we get these bad guys, we take care of them, we get the treasure, boom. How is this a bad plan? Like it's like this is simple, it's
Mhm.
straightforward, let's just get it done. And the Count of Monte Cristo guy, Jim Caviezel's character, is like, that's not how we're going to do things. It's going to be long. I've got a plan. It's long and drawn out. And so sometimes I feel like I'm like that guy. How is this a bad plan, Lord? Let's just get this over with. Can we
Mm.
not have these difficult things, whether it's financial or health
Yeah.
or relational or church people or imposter syndrome as a writer, as a pastor, whatever, you name it. But in that same breath, I would say, okay, I sense you're digging a hole here, Lord, and it's a good one though. It's a foundational
Mm.
kind of depth, and I don't have to worry about moving forward, um, as much as getting deeper in you. And so I do
Yeah.
sense him doing that. Like I would say, if there was a restlessness to what's he going to do in the future, that's kind of settled a little bit, over the last few months,
Mm.
where I'm like, you know what, I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good pastor. I want to do a good job of being with you and then telling people about that when I preach and caring for people that I work with,
Yeah.
and I still have all those same questions, Lord, of why this, whatever it is taking so long, why this
Yeah.
roundabout way to get this person's attention or this health struggle with this individual. Like just, um, But I don't know, like it's one of those where I couldn't say like if I was asked to write it down, like give like the process that God is and what is he actually doing? I don't know if I could say other than that he is. That I feel the time it takes me to respond to him is less. The time I spend in self-pity or wallowing or kind of like is less. There's hope for all of us in Jesus. Yeah, so that's a snapshot. I don't know if that
Dude, it totally does. Like, this is so lame, but it's part of our world. Like, even what I preached this past Sunday, like I started going through
which I was
Revelation
looking for
6.
it and I couldn't find it. Come on, tech team at AOC. Where is it? I was looking yesterday. It'll probably be there tomorrow. It'll be there
I don't
tomorrow.
know. Yeah. Yeah. It was just like the thought process of, like I was just really stuck on, I think it was like N.T. Wright's. No, I don't know if it was his or I can't remember which person like brought it up of like just a question of what we would naturally expect to flow after chapter 5.
Remind me again, chapter 5.
Wouldn't be chapter 5 is like, John is weeping because there's no one worthy to open the scroll, and then it's like, don't weep, the lion
Is that how he
sees the
sounded?
lamb, right?
Don't weep. Don't weep. It's blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
La di da. No.
I wondered what that accent of that.
See, I haven't been made fun of. I haven't been made fun of
and you
enough
need
in the
it.
last 3 months.
It's been a while.
So
this is
like,
part of your spiritual growth.
That felt good for me.
Yes,
it's digging a hole, and we don't know what the Lord is doing with it. Truly.
All right. So he's.
And so it's like, because then it's just like this glorious, like every tongue, every tribe, every nation worshiping, like all the cosmos is worshiping. And then when the Lamb starts to open the seals, right, your first thought would be, here comes the full execution of justice. Everything's going to be done with, and we're immediately moving into the new world, right? But that's not what comes. And so like, I was sitting with that as like, oh, what we're seeing here is like why evil is what it is, and why is the Lord allowing it? And it's still not well answered, but it's, because even in Seal 5 it was like, well, how long, oh Lord? And I'm like, Lord, thank you for that. Like that even the martyrs who are in the heavenlies here are asking you in this moment, how long? And his answer sucks.
A little longer.
A little longer.
How about 2,000 plus years?
Like, what? And you're just sitting there, and so you're like left with this deal, and like, what is the Lord doing? Then you're left with, do I trust him or not? Like, is he all knowing or not? Like, since nobody's worthy to open up the scroll, but he is, so is he still good? Is he still loving? And I just hung on the word, he's the faithful and true witness. It's like, I can trust him in the midst of like just the global scheme of the playing out of evil and all that kind of stuff. But like, even in my own heart, it's like, I can trust him no matter what. He's the faithful and true witness. Like, so it's, I don't know where that's connecting, but it's just like, you don't see the full picture, but it's just like, he has to allow these things to take its full course. Otherwise the final product can't happen. You're like, okay, rejoice in the sufferings. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're just in that
Curious.
spot, but that's why I love SEAL 5. How long?
Like you're like talking like teams. SEAL Team 5. How long? SEAL Team 6. Worthy is the Lamb. How have you, like in your own heart, as you've read, I know we're reading some of the same stuff as you get ready for Revelation, and you just, as far as a framework, do you feel like there was like, I think where I landed was, because the different options were, this is a local thing that's happening at that time, this is a symbolic thing, and it's a future thing that will play out in some future historical local thing. Those were kind of the options. And I think when I landed in my preaching, I think, at least I hope I did, it was kind of like this, like, yes to all three. Like, is that, would you feel the same way? You feel confident in that same kind of approach?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, what do they call it? Is that the progressive dispensational thought now, where it's not just the preterist, it's not just the historist, all
Yeah.
those titles that scholars have to use to justify
Yeah.
their education. It's just, sorry, that was mean. Like, who says the
That's
word preterist?
preterist,
Right?
yeah, like it's all in the,
Yeah,
it's
you're
all
like,
happened in the past, right?
why would you
It's
say?
of the past.
Yeah, but I think I actually look at it of the passive going, well, that's the window to help us to contextualize how
Yeah.
we see today. If Rome was Babylon, well, who's
Hmm.
Babylon today? So it's like looking at those scenarios, like, well, the rider on the white horse in seal one, I'm of the camp. That's not
Yeah.
Jesus, and so like I'm like, well, who is a false messiah in their
Right.
context? Oh, Caesar. And what did he say about his kingdom? Oh, it's the
Hmm.
kingdom of God. It's the eternal kingdom of light. Well, what did he
Yeah.
promise? Peace. How do they achieve peace? Murder, extortion, oppression, economic. Like, so you just see it. So you go, okay, that was then. That's the same symbols
Yeah.
that play out each generation. So what do we look like today? I even said to our church, and I held my breath for a few seconds. I said, could America
Mm.
be Babylon? And
Yeah.
I moved
No,
on.
we did too, like
It's
for
like,
sure.
yes.
And or Babylon-esque
Yeah.
tendencies. We have them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally. Yep. Every
Have
country
you
does.
had, because I got the questions during the series and I'm getting them now. Questions about what's happening now in the Middle East, Israel, and people asking you, what about this, and is this, and like how are you approaching
Yeah.
that without stepping on the landmine there?
I don't know if you cannot accidentally
Yeah,
step on the landmine. I was going to bring it up this
coming,
Sunday,
coming.
but
Oh yeah.
no, this past Sunday, but we didn't have time to it. So actually, I'm
Mm,
probably going to a little bit this Sunday, just because chapter 7 is who's
yeah.
the 144, and so I'm just going to talk about that, because I do think it's important to try to draw out the spiritual realm stuff that might be influencing certain movements without saying all of Israel is
Yeah.
God's people, right? Like, they're all just saved just because they're Israel, which is like not New Testament, So it's like, you want to go, well, not all of this pro-Palestinian anti-Semitic movement stuff is righteous
Right.
politically or socially. Like, it would be ignorant of us to think there's not a demonic
Sure.
push here, like, or even on the flip side of maybe even some influence Israel's using against Palestine that's not
Oh
of God
yeah.
either, right? Because, like, I brought up to the church, I said, listen, even God used Babylon to execute
Hmm.
judgment on Israel. I was like, so it's like, it's not, that's where I think some of the filters of Revelation
Yeah.
have caused some of that problems, like dispensationalism
Right.
at some level, right? Like,
Yeah. And
so I know I'm going to go there, but it's like hard, because how do you nuance it? Because immediately people's like filter and
mhm,
frame of mind is always immediately
yeah.
Republican, Democrat. You're like, no, how
Hmm.
about kingdom? Then we
Yeah.
filter through.
No,
But I do think there is a demonic ploy of the devil to go against Israel to the
right.
end, at
And
some
by
level of capacity.
Israel,
Do we know what that
in
looks
that
like
comment,
always?
you're
No.
saying secular Israel, those of, national descent that are Jewish.
Yes, and I would also say part of the potential for that is to go at the
Okay.
remnant. Like, but I would also say there's the ethnic Israel, and then
Yeah.
like the true Israel.
Yeah. It's
So
hard
it's
not to
like
step in it when we talk about
coming
it.
at
I
that.
think because people like, have asked me to pray for Israel, and I do. But usually, what I do is I, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, is the verse, and so I pray for the peace of the New Jerusalem. And because I think that is the idea of the original Israel and Jerusalem, which is that this will be a kingdom that will cover the whole earth and will include every nation. And then you also have
Yeah.
Paul saying, which is crazy, Israel can be Israel again. They can be grafted back in if they believe in Jesus. And you're just like, wait, what?
Right.
No, it's an interesting, and this is a crazy jump we've made from personal stuff to this
Big time.
But
this is how
one of the
we
things
are.
I was going to say though is what's cool about Revelation, and I think we're showing our hand here. That book first and foremost is this book that says, hold on to Jesus. And even like that in one of those commentaries, like the guy that tells the story about the janitor, who's at the seminary. I don't know if you're reading that one, but it's like these seminary students are all gathered around, like, we're trying to discover what does this really mean. And there's the janitor in the hallway, and he's like, yeah, the guy's like, I know what it means. He's like, what do you mean you know what it means? He goes, I can tell you what it means. It's like, well, what is it? He's like, well, God wins. That's the message.
Right.
But I do think going through Revelation, actually distilling it down to, it doesn't take away the fact that there will be some sort of specific application to prophecy, that it sure seems like there's a whole lot of like on the spiritual heat map of the world, there's a lot going on that surrounds Israel and the nation of Israel. So yeah, something's probably going to happen there, but what does it mean for me as a believer, as a member of the new Israel? I'm a grafted in Gentile for sure. And I think as we deal with difficult things, it tells me to, hey, don't weep, or your accent, don't weep. Hey, you think you're right.
Shut up.
But yeah, hold on to Jesus. Like he's actually good. You're going to be all right.
Yeah. When you read chapters 2 through 3, like when Jesus says they're a synagogue of Satan.
Is that one of the churches?
Yeah, like he says it twice, I think, to two different churches. Like the Jews there are actually a synagogue of Satan, because they're coming against Jesus through the church, and you're like, yes. So somehow we have to separate that not everybody who is under the banner of Israel from the New Testament lens, right, is considered part of
Jesus' words,
the new
like,
Israel.
Don't think that just
Israel.
Because you're a child of Abraham, I can make kids out of stones. Like, this is not the thing you should be resting on, that you were born an ethnic Jew.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, like historically, what has happened in anti-Semitic movements that seem to never die. Like they seem to never die. Like I'm recently hearing the stuff about Henry Ford, like just his unbelievable anti-Semitism in his life. Like you're just like, are you kidding me? And so you're right. There's something demonic. There's something behind this that is, okay, let's get them. Like, let's do something that is against Christ.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like this very blinded mass hysteria where a lot of people don't even know why. Right. And they think they know why, but they don't really think they know why, or the implications of it. And you're just like, yikes. But it's just like that's just not right. I mean, like we had a huge thing here at UT, and it's just like, it made national news, and you're just like, what in the world? Like
the tinderbox.
Anywho.
Yeah.
That's a whole, it is. And well, whatever. That's it. I would implore the church, like, we got to approach it through the filter of gospel in the kingdom. Kind of what I said, like to the church on Sunday, I was like, as we go through this, like, it should stir up hope for us in a sense of like peace, knowing that God's in control and that we're sealed. Because it was like that question, who can stand? And 7 answers that question. And I was like, we can stand, but what this really should do for us as well is break our hearts for those who aren't sealed yet, like who can't stand. So instead of like judging and maybe using Revelation as the turn and burn stuff now, like Jesus comes so they can all go to hell. It's like, there should be this passion and brokenness inside of us to implore on Jesus' behalf to be saved, So it's like, regardless of how we see these things, like, man, we should realize like there's a demonic movement that's going to increase as the kingdom keeps coming
I think
in,
this is, we just mentioned too, like the kind of crazy path that our conversation, but our conversations always do this. Actually, this is exactly what we do. And it's not just because we're pastors. Like, I think it's just because and if you think about normal people, they're going through personal things every day. And then they're also watching the news and they're wondering, and sometimes that news bleeds over right into your town. You just mentioned UT there and the protests, I'm assuming, that happened for Palestine. And, last election cycle, I remember the news watching what was happening in Minneapolis and stuff happening near Chicago. And just, it's all very big movements out there that feel very personal. And then you're like, oh, yeah. And by the way, I have a family member who's really struggling and is sick and is going through something. And I don't feel great about my job. And I don't feel great about my walk with Jesus. And I wish I could go to bed earlier and not eat so much at night. And I mean, like all of it, it's all this one big jumbled thing. I've got to make a decision of what I think about Israel and what I think about the politics of America. And I need to spend time with Jesus. And I need to be a better, like it's never separated. You can't just put them in boxes.
Yeah.
And so it's very actual true to form that our conversation went this way today. But I have to say, really fun to finally talk again. It's so good.
Yeah,
It
man.
gives me I already feel some whatever resolve just kind of bubbling up and all right, I can do this week. I can do whatever. What is this? May 20th. I could do May 20th. It is. I know.
Yikes. Hey,
yeah.
I'm going to show you something. I'm trying to figure out how to share a screen thing. So I'm going to say share screen.
Okay.
This. So this is the website acleddata.com. So on here, you can actually begin to analyze where all wars and conflicts are happening in the world.
Wow.
At the present moment, at any time, I'm trying to see. So let's just pull up.
Yeah.
Middle East.
It's yellow.
Does
that mean caution? Yellow.
Yeah. So it's and it updates it every month and just kind of pinpoints events and activities. So you want to go the spiritual heat map. That's what I was saying. It's man, when you can all of a sudden get to the global piece and you see where all the conflicts and wars are happening.
Goodness, look at that.
And you start to kind of think, and you start to think about Seal 1 and 2 about riders on the right horse and then the blood and then the economics. This is happening. Just because we don't see it in America does not mean it's not happening in the majority of the world. It's the longer I was on this website, the more depressed I got.
But it looks very informative too, though. It looks like something that's that. That's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy.
Do you know how people will say, if they're trying to make a decision about in Revelation, I don't know if you're there yet.
Look at that, Africa. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Right smack
about the Great Tribulation. Where's the Great Tribulation in Revelation? It's coming, isn't it? And you're preaching?
No,
I mean,
it's now.
What chapter?
Yeah, I mean, 7 is these are the ones who come out of. Well, it's even in. Yeah, it's 6 and 7. We're talking about these are the ones who have come out or who are coming out.
Yeah, so that's what I mean is this. That's been interesting to think about. Just what you said. People around the world, to Americans or Westerners, that would be I don't know if we're going to be here, the Great Tribulation, and they're like, hey, we're in it. We've been in it for years. What are you talking about? This is not a maybe. And I think this kind of thing is so good. I'll post this as a resource, but just say the website out loud.
ACLED data.com.
And what does that stand for?
Yeah. So I have no idea. So, I mean, here's the states, right? These are just anything that's in orange is a demonstration, like a protest or whatever, but no political violence. There's one little dot right there. I don't know what that was, but when you look at the rest of the regions, it's violence.
Wow. Bringing clarity to crisis. That's a good tagline for a website.
Yeah. I mean, it's just even Latin America, like,
Yeah.
just look at that.
It reminds me of there's something my wife has said to me that has, and I know I've shared this before, but that's just stuck, of perspective. You need a little perspective. I remember the comment to me at a certain point, and it was just such a helpful comment, because my world of the things that I thought were really, really difficult in front of me were related to or relative to the world or what's happening or somebody else's struggles were really minimal. And I needed perspective to go, okay, you know what, just take a step back, take a breath, and consider that there's somebody else who's going through a lot more than you. And for you to be, because that's the danger also with thinking about kind of how we frame end time stuff and our own personal stuff, is that you can check out so much and be so afraid that you're not thinking about the church anymore and how God is strengthening it and growing it, because you're so concerned about protecting your own world and your own stuff and your own freedom, and just that you're not even a member really, or you don't have that perspective. So well, man, we got a good run here for the first time back. There's a lot of stuff.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's wrap it. You want to wrap it?
Yes.
You want me to wrap it?
No.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Let me think about what to say.
You're good at it.
Ready? All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Unfinished People. This is the We're Back episode, and we're excited to be back. And thanks for joining us. And we're going to be filming again, Lord willing. Yes, next week. But yeah, great to be with you.
It's holiday. Are we going to do it on a holiday?
Maybe we'll just let this one simmer for a little bit, because it's longer. So we'll let this one run for a couple weeks, get our feet back under us, and but we hope to be regular in the way we roll out.
I do too. I hope to. There's days.
We're praying
days,
for Brandon's regularity. We hope to be regular.
You said we.
We,
man.
as a podcast producing people, hope to have regular episodes. That's even worse. I probably just need to lose the word regular, right? Scheduled.
Yes, that would be so helpful.
Yeah, but now we're in junior high everything mode. Has to do with that
go
now.
There.
It is. So we don't want to be that. Yeah, whatever. Yep.
We're just going to do it again. On a consistent basis.
It still doesn't work. Okay, bye. See ya later.
Adios.